Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditam Mastumavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May that one protect us both. May that one nourish us both. May we work together with great energy. May our study be illumined. May we not unnecessarily disagree with each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Pei, pei, pei. So this is question answer session, and we have 2 participants here already, and 1 question has already been asked. As I understand it, the question is, a guru is important in guiding spiritual life. How do we find a guru? So the first thing I'm going to say is, personally speaking, I don't like this term guru, because this word has very negative associations in many different places. And so I find that if there's some confusion about terms, it's much better to reduce the terms to the vernacular language, in this case, English. So why don't we say competent teacher? Then the next question is, what makes a teacher competent? So there are qualifications for a teacher. Firstly, they must have their attention tuned in to the glory of the divine constantly. They must either be perfected souls, or they are certainly constantly attuned to the divine, in such a way that they become an open channel for divine grace to flow. The next thing, of course, is they have no motive. And when you look for a guru, it's important to understand and to analyze, do these people have a motive? Is there any self-promotion going on? Because one of the greatest spiritual qualities will be humility. Because from a guru's point of view, or a competent teacher's point of view, the shishya or the student is actually nothing else but the divine dressed up like this. So if you ask that kind of person, how many disciples do you have? It's not an appropriate question. It's like saying, I went to India and I went to 6 temples and I saw God in each one, and come back to Dublin and say, I have 6 new disciples. So a competent teacher would have no motive whatsoever. That means they have no egoistic tendency, either for wealth or for status or any other kind of reward. Reward being, reputation, status, even feeling good. Somebody says, oh, you gave such a good talk. Oh, nice, thank you. And the whole chest puffs out. Or that talk was the most terrible thing I ever heard in my life. Oh, the whole body goes narrow, the chest collapses, and I feel miserable, ready for suicide. So we should make sure that a guru has no motive whatsoever. A competent teacher has no motive for status or any other thing. Now, that's an interesting and important thing to highlight, because many so-called gurus today self-proclaimed guru. If a guru is self-proclaimed, they will not be a guru. If a guru says, I am a guru, that's the real evidence they are not the guru. And they're sitting somewhere on the throne somewhere, like that. I don't think the greatest teachers in the world did that. What are the greatest teachers in the world? Those perfected souls, either already perfect or made perfect during their lifetime. Some examples: Jesus, Buddha, Ramakrishna, Krishna, Ram, etc. These are all avatars, incarnations, perfected souls already. And then there are others, great, great saints, who are perfected during their own lifetime. And or who are extremely holy in such a way that the quality of purity dominates the mind. Such a person will be self-evident. So no point in asking, can I win? What can I do to find a guru, or any of these terms? Because there's a spontaneous synergy that will arrive. This person is my guru. Because the only thing that is operating in guiding your spiritual life is a kind of invisible divine helmsman that guides you knowingly or unknowingly throughout your life. You look back on your past milestones, you see how it happened. Some invisible entity is always there, always protecting, always nurturing. And that entity that religion calls God is not a bad investor. The fact that you're alive and breathing with free air, free sunshine. Sunshine is glorious here at the moment. Free air, free sunshine, lovingly digesting your food, minute after minute, second after second, lifetime after lifetime also, giving you unlimited opportunities to pass your life university examination. Renewing your cells, staying away while you sleep. Such a lover is not to be found in the framework of human love. Human love is essentially love of yourself. So the guru will be pure love, absolutely pure love. Will take this ego and make it an open channel for the dispensation of grace. And humility will be there. Sri Ramakrishna never liked the word acharya or guru. Teacher or guru literally means the person who is capable of shining a light in such a way that your own ignorance gets transformed into the light of knowledge. That's only a beginning stage, because a real guru's job is to make it self-evident to you that your own mind is the guru. It is your own mind actually that is the guru. And then the next thing will be, you'll have to know the purport, or he or she will have to know the purport of the scriptures. What do we mean by that? What do we mean by scriptures? Scripture means somebody's direct experience of the unfathomable, of that which is subtle, that which is not obviously known, that which refers to an entity that has no moving parts in space, no occupation in terms of spatial restrictions or awareness, and transcending time as well and change. Do you know of such a thing in your objective experience? No, we can't know such a thing. All we know is things that occupy space and things that change in time. And time itself is only relevant to man. Sense of time is only relevant in that way. Because we register change and we see it as a progression, something like a train moving from A to B. But our modern physics will tell us no such thing actually. So they will have to know the purport of the scriptures. That doesn't mean to say that they are a scholar. Not at all. Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Sharada Devi, etc. None of these were educated people. So it's nothing to do with scholarliness. It's to do with, do you know? I'll always remember Latu Maharaj, Swami Purnananda. He was even more literate than Sri Ramakrishna. And yet, his inner soul was the book. That was the scripture. In later life, when he asked people, please, students, please come read this thing to me. And they read it. He would reflect and say, yes, that's correct. In other words, he was endorsing the truth of the scripture himself. His personal experience was there. And then, as I say, somebody whose mind is tuned in to the reality of the self, or the reality of what religion calls God. Somebody who knows, who has an insight and has traveled the road you have traveled, or at least has that perfection of understanding that knows life and therefore has no critical attitude about it. That means they are the embodiment of pure love. Even though they may speak harshly to a student at times, It's all out of love. There's no malice in it. But then you see it doesn't end there, because finding a guru means we have to look for a natural, easy match, a spontaneous match. Such an entity comes into your life not by chance. But the matching movement on the student's part will have to be like this. 4 qualifications are there in our scriptural texts. First qualification means they have to have the capacity to discern. What does discernment mean? They have to evaluate things and revalue things in a different way. We've just been studying the Kathopanishad, the most important section there. It tells us about Ekadwaram, an 11-gated city. Ekadasha Dwaram, 11-gated city. So that means that's referring to the human body. Normally we think of the human body as this is me. If you say I look ugly, I personally get offended and weep many tears and probably go and get plastic surgery. So that's the difficulty. The body is just made from yesterday's food. If you acknowledge this properly and see things in the correct light, your revaluation will avoid many difficulties and problems and painful experiences. This is a body, and we have multiple opportunities to understand through different examples. Both Kathopanishad and the Bhagavad Gita refer to the human body as a chariot and driven by horses. What are these horses? The sense organs. That's the only way we know the world. And we don't know the whole of the world. We only know 5 varieties. That's all. 5 versions of it. Nothing more. 5 photographs. Beyond that, we don't know. We don't know what is ultraviolet, infrared, in a natural way. We can't see it. We don't have night vision like an owl. So these are not standard views of the world, and therefore our interpretation of the world is very limited. It's not the sum totality. When people say, oh, I believe in evolution, I have a little fun. I say, no, I don't. I believe in totality. If you have a totality, there's nothing that changes. It only looks like a change. It's an apparent change. And if there's only one thing, and our Vedanta philosophy will tell us, only one thing is there, then what we see as our world is that one thing seemingly dispersed and fragmented into sections and parts. Fragmented God is what we call the world. But in fact, it's a totality. What is the fault? Not the fault of the totality. Don't go and blame the totality. It belongs to me. I have a defective way of looking at things, a limited way of looking at things, and my interpretation will be very narrow. So the student will have to have this discernment, what we call viveka, sufficient to understand the purport of the prayer, asato ma satkamaya, tamoso ma jyoti kamaya, mrityo amritam kamaya. Lead me from the unreal to the real. But this world looks real. How can we even suggest that it's unreal? Well, it's only because when we look at it closely, it's no longer there. Whatever we are looking at is delivered to our door 8 minutes, 8.5 minutes later than its actuality. Because the sun's light needs that amount of time to reach us because of its distance and because there's a speed limit to light. 186,000 miles per second, that's all we can cope with. And then the eye tries to catch it. Things are too fast for it. So it knits it into a relay of events that looks like one continuum going on. Something like a film, where you see one slide, the next one. You put it in a whole fast series, it looks like a continuum. One train moving. So how to get to the reality? First of all, we have to acknowledge what we see is not necessarily what we get. It's only our interpretation of what is there. So lead us from the unreal to the real. When we see that reality, it's a constant entity that has no change. So discerning in terms of moral behavior has to be there. What is the right thing to do? What is good for us? What is bad for us? Often what is seen as good for us is bad for us. Chocolate is very tasty, but unfortunately, it delivers diabetes, or can do. So will we continue to do it? Then what's the source of a lack of discrimination? Sorrow. When we feel a pain or some discomfort in this world, we resort to a tried and tested formula which doesn't really give us a satisfactory result. Let's take the example, chocolate. And then after some months we complain, oh, I'm due to get married. Unfortunately, my hips don't agree with it. So I have to do something. So this kind of discernment is necessary, trying to see the truth. The key value in spiritual life is truth. When we look at the world, our interpretation is not true. It's only relatively true. It's only in relation to the organs that perceive it. That's all. Then detachment. Detachment is a very misunderstood term. Detachment doesn't mean to say we withdraw from life and live in a cave somewhere, and we don't like to do that, so we'll never be a student. No, detachment means not disturbing the mind in its activities and in the willing side of those activities called work or any other activity done with human body. If we are looking for, in a futuristic way, the results or the effects or the fruits of our activities, then this will be painful. It'll be disturbing to the mind. So we have to learn a let-go attitude that says, let me let go of all the consequences of actions. Let me be mindful of everything here and now. Let me cultivate that. And then there are 6 treasures that we have to cultivate. 6 treasures, and these treasures will be delineated. But they amount to a cultivation of the mind, purity of the mind, self-control, cultivating positive values. One of these will be pure thinking, pure activities, the attitude of forbearance. Ultimately, an enlightened soul will not worry whether things are hot or cold, whether things are painful or not. They will have an attitude of what we call titiksha, as the capacity to endure. What cannot be cured has to be endured. And so an equanimity of mind has to be cultivated. Because these are 6 treasures and 6 things to be cultivated, it means that the student is not there yet, but knows the formula of how to get there. And of course, part of that formula will be study of scripture under the guru, under the teacher, competent teacher, because these principles are so subtle, it requires a competent teacher to guide the student through until they're able to stand on their own feet. The goal of the competent teacher would be to make somebody self-sufficient and independent. And then there would be other things, cultivating attitude of contentment, self-control, and so on. All of these things, there are 6 of them. Faith will be one of them. Faith in what? Faith in the Guru, faith in the scripture, faith in that entity that's sustaining your life, that religion calls God. And above everything else, faith in yourself. A good, competent teacher will make you feel you can do anything, infinite possibilities. because these infinite possibilities are built into you. Since your fundamental nature is divine, then your potential is unlimited. Swami Vivekananda's Raja Yoga succinctly puts that whole thing. Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest that from within. But you see, once manifested, it becomes a series of infinite possibilities unfolding. And then, above all else, there will need to be the desire for truth, the desire for liberation, the desire for freedom. That's a very important thing. I have a text here, which is an introduction, essentially, to Atma Bodha, that is self-knowledge by Sri Shankaracharya. This will cover many of these aspects. There's a section which I have labeled section 11, and I'll read out so that we can expand on these 6 treasures necessary to cultivate. It'll start off with Sama, then Dhamma. Vedantic Teachers, and the commentator is actually Swami Nikhilananda, who made the interpretation of the great text from Mahendranath Gupta that comes out in English as the Gospel of Ramakrishna. He talks about the 4 qualifications of the pupil. Vedantic teachers maintain that genuine seekers after knowledge must practice proper disciplines. It's no good saying, I want a guru, but then not be prepared to follow what the guru is saying and not be prepared to undergo some disciplines. What's the point of disciplines? To strengthen your will. Because what we call ignorance, the main obstacle, is equivalent to weakness. Strength is the key value in spiritual life. The strength and the determination, despite what? Despite ups and downs, to keep going. I put it in the form of 3 Ds. You have to have a strong, whatever you want, you have to have a strong desire to get it. There has to be a determination to get it. Then there has to be a dedication. Dedication means I can put other things aside and categorize them as of secondary importance. There has to be one understanding. There's only one purpose, central purpose in life. And that central purpose is God realization or real freedom. Freedom that is as a result of access to the fullness of truth here and now. So the genuine seekers will be those who have a guru. True knowledge is always accompanied by a direct personal experience. To know the divine self, Atman, is to realize that the self of man is pure consciousness. To know Brahman, that is the ultimate principle, we can say the infinite invisible, is to become Brahman. Therefore, intellectual understanding of Vedanta must be followed by actual transformation of life. This has come out also in a section of the Katha Upanishad that we dealt with yesterday. And so the 2 approaches are necessary. First of all, we have to understand what are the principles. Secondly, we have to catch the emotions up and say, what is the practice? The practice without the principles has no value. Principles without the practice has even less value. So, therefore, intellectual understanding of Vedas must be followed by actual transformation of life. And I might comment that only man has this capacity to transform discord into harmony. The whole of the spiritual endeavor is to take this transforming capacity that we have take the raw material that is around us and transform it into something that is useful, not only for ourselves, but for all. Otherwise, it is of no practical benefit to the aspirant. Further, much of our reasoning is the rationalization of our desires. Most people understand a thing the way they want to understand it. They prove only what they want to prove. Therefore, the attainment of truth demands complete non-attachment. Non-attachment to what? Well, non-attachment to everything that is fleeting, including our own thoughts and our own ego. Our primary attachment is to our psychophysical combination. We make an identity there. All our sorrow comes from there. Seekers of self-knowledge are exhorted to practice 4 disciplines. So, viveka is the first one. Discrimination. Discrimination, discernment, as I prefer to call it, between the real and the unreal. So we start off with that prayer, Asato ma sadgamaya. Lead me from the unreal to the real. Tamaso ma sadgamaya. Tamaso, lead us from darkness to light. You know, very often an expression for depression is darkness. When somebody is under depression and you ask, how are you feeling? I'm in a very dark mood. And if you look at our psychological conditioning, you'll see that actually most of our life is spent in the darkness of the past or in trying to desperately struggle with the future and try to cope with the now, the present moment. This is an intuition and unshakable conviction of the mind that Brahman alone is the real substance and all other things are unreal and illusory. There's a basis for discrimination. Discrimination is the first and foremost discipline. So when you ask where's our starting point, it is discrimination. Now, of the 4 methods, general methods that we use commensurate with conditions of the mind, the discrimination is used as a principal disciplinary method for Jnana Yoga. And many people don't understand Jnana Yoga, and many people shy away from it because of this misunderstanding. But what is it? Jnana Yoga is the practice of constant discrimination between what is real, what is unreal, what is good, what is not good, what is useful, what is of not so much use. And so that is a primary discipline, actually. Our starting point is that. Then you see, the second one is this detachment, vairagya, technically called that. Is the utter disregard of all pleasures, ranging from the enjoyment of sensuous objects of the world to the experience of the happiness one expects in heaven after death. You ask many people involved in religion, what is your goal? To get to heaven, they say. A post-mortem place, like a holiday camp. That's what I want. Well, that's nothing more than an extension of attachment to things here. So having attachment to things here, you have attachment to things which give you even more pleasure. That is not going to access your freedom for you. It's the opposite. So, the enjoyment of sensuous objects of this world, the experience of the happiness one expects in heaven after death. From the teachings of the scriptures and personal observation, the intelligent aspirant, that means the discerning aspirant, realizes that no pleasure, whether here or hereafter, can have an infinite duration, since all pleasures are the results of finite action, even in heaven. Even good actions, such as charity, study, or worship, are finite by their nature. And many people who undergo these philanthropic acts, when they really look at it, why am I doing it? I'm doing it to feel good. I'm doing it, to get a reward. Well, none of these actions will really access your freedom. So their results are to our final self-knowledge, as we shall see, is not the direct result of any action. Why? Because it's self-knowledge. It's already there. It doesn't have to be gotten. It doesn't have to be acquired. It has to be realized. It's here and now. There are many people who walk around with glasses on their head, looking for their glasses, their spectacles. Sometimes if you're short-sighted, you might say, I have to wear glasses to find my glasses. The example thereof that Ramakrishna gives of a person wanting to light his pipe, and he carries a lantern, a coal-fired lantern, knocks on his neighbor's door. Hello, do you have fire to light my tobacco? No, you're carrying it with you. There's a very famous painting, and I think it stands in St. Paul's Cathedral. And it's a small painting of Christ carrying a lantern, knocking on a door. Supposing that's a normal person knocking on a door and saying, please, can you lend me a torch? I had to find this door. I need a torch. You're carrying it already. Nothing more to gain. You have to realize what you have, everything that you have, is here and now. In this present moment. You'll lose it if you're concerned with the past. You'll lose it if you're concerned with the future. So it always exists. The Vedantic discipline merely removes ignorance, the barrier to the knowledge. All spiritual life, therefore, is the removal of obstacles. And the glory of the self shines forth. This discipline may be compared to a wind that blows away a dark cloud, being the radiance of the sun, or hiding the radiance of the sun. So as the cloud moves on, the sun shines forth. You can't make a prayer to the sun, please come out today. The sun doesn't understand a prayer like that. The sun shines. That's its only job. The cloud has to move on. We can't say, I can't see my image in the mirror. Oh, clean the mirror, please. Then you'll see your image. You can't say, I see you're pregnant. I can't see the baby. No, something is in the way. I can't see the fire. Why? Because all I can see is smoke. When the smoke moves on, you'll see the fire. Then these 6 treasures that I mentioned, see, Shatsambhati, these form the ethical foundation of spiritual life. It's no good saying, in an age where I want short circuits and shortcuts, an easy way, instant coffee, instant this, instant that. No such thing as instant realization. There's no such thing as competitive meditation. None of these are useful. In fact, they're deleterious to our spiritual advancement. So what are these? The first one is sama, or calmness. If you suffer from road rage, please cultivate calmness. I have a saying, you see, an old lady on a bus with a face like a gargoyle hanging on to the rail will not make the bus go faster. So we have to accept. Yesterday we were meeting somebody at a station. So there easily could be some anxiety because we're late. The traffic is bad and things, so many obstacles in the way. We got to a parking garage and the door was locked. One of the obstacles that we had. Nature, otherwise called the loving, guiding hand of the divine, came to our help. And there were people who came and opened the door from the inside. And then we used that and went down. But you see, there's no point in being anxious about it if you can't change it or do anything about it. You have to resign yourself to the fact. There's a famous example of Swami Purnananda, who was famous for his peace and calmness, calm disposition. And he was on a boat, and the whole water was in a stormy condition, to the extent that the boat was almost going to capsize. And the Swami was sitting there silently smoking his pipe. And his friend, who traveling with him, devotee and doctor, was infuriated because everybody was panicking except him. And he got so infuriated, he took the pipe and threw it in the water. And still the Swami was calm. And he said, aren't you worried? Can you, about the swimming, and getting in the water and so on and so forth? He said, we come across that. If we're in the water, we'll take that up. But in the meantime, there's nothing else we can do. A similar story goes about the person who feels that the whole spiritual life is invested in intellectualism. The story of these two men on the boat, and the boatman is uneducated, and a great pundit, a great scholar, enters and sits in a dignified way in the boat. I'm going to elaborate and exaggerate the story a little bit. And then you see, looking haughtily at the uneducated man, he said, and striking up conversation, he says, "Sir, have you studied physics?" Now the examples are different in different stories. Physics? No, I have no idea what that is. Oh, then you have no understanding of the beautiful mechanism of this world, and 1/4 of your life is gone. And after some time, little silence. "Sir, do you know history?" "History? No, I just know this little boat." "Oh, then you don't know the glory of great achievements in the past, and the heroism that took place, and the great adventures, and the story of humanity. So another 1/4 of your life will be gone. See, half your life is gone if you don't understand these things." And after some time, "Do you know mathematics? Do you know the rhythmic structure of the world and how things are woven together in numbers?" "No, I have no idea. I have 3 children, that's all I know." "Ah, then 3/4 of your life is gone." And then the storm arose, and the boat started to rock. It started to be completely turbulent and was in danger of turning over. And the boatman asks the scholar, "Sir, do you know swimming?" "No, I don't know." "Then your whole life is gone." So that's a little sideline. So calmness, dwelling of the mind on Brahman, after it has detached itself from all the sense objects through firm knowledge of their inherent defects. The concrete effect of this discipline upon the aspirant is that he devotes himself entirely to hearing about Brahman. Because we can hear of all kinds of things. We can hear about Russia in Ukraine. We can hear about COVID. We can hear about all the various turbulence and wars and refugee crisis and so on, and bring the whole mind down into negativity and depression. Never mind about the safety of other people, ready to commit suicide because you only heard about it. And so we have to cultivate positivity. We have to cultivate a sense of calmness based on the fact that any moment in time, we can withdraw into a position, a poised condition where we can beam. Anybody can do it. Anybody can detach to that extent. A student of Vedanta, like all true philosophers, must cultivate inner calmness. He treads a very difficult path. The Katha Upanishad compares it to walking on the edge of a razor. We have to always be alert. And we have to always be aware of things which will disturb our calmness. Must have convictions, but should never be swayed by the turbulence of passions. A Vedantist is often compared to a fire blazing charcoal, free from smoke and noise after the wood is consumed. The next one is Dhamma, or self-control, restraining the organs of both perception and action from the respective objects. This serves to strengthen the will and keeping them under control. The organs of perception are those of tasting, hearing, smelling, seeing, and touching. The organs of action are those of speaking, grasping, moving about, procreating, and evacuating. Endowed with this virtue, the aspirant engages only in hearing about Brahman. There comes a point in this revaluation of life where you only want to hear about the glory of God. You don't want to hear about all the other things. And then the next one, I'm skipping much of this commentary to save time, will be Shraddha, or faith. I think I covered self-control, Titiksha. Before that, Uparati, or self-settledness. It's a function of the mind which prevents the sense organs restrained by the first two, because this is a progression. First two, Sama and Dhamma. And keeping that going, sustaining it, like kicking a football up in the air, it will come down. Be ready to kick it back up again. This virtue, according to some Vedantins, means the relinquishment of worldly duties, or the acceptation of sannyasa, or monastic life. But this is not so. It's only a monastic interpretation of it. No, it is just to sustain the self-control. And titiksha, forbearance. Forbearance, the endurance of all afflictions arising from the contact of the senses and their objects. And then moving on, this samadhana, or complete concentration. We have to cultivate concentration. Many people come to me with a malady of stress. They think I'm going to teach them some spiritual lessons. I don't. I teach them time management. Time management, if you don't have it, your concentration is all over the place. Concentration means taking this present moment and putting all your available energy into this, be it activity, be it meditation, be it whatever it is. Concentration is necessary. And then faith, a function of the mind which enables the aspirant to accept as true the words of Vedanta as taught by a competent teacher. It's no good finding a teacher if you don't accept, absorb, contemplate. A teacher's job is to make you challenged. Don't accept everything I say, but at least have a reliance on my purity and holiness. But you're free to challenge everything. No such thing as blind faith. Challenge it if you like. Ask questions you like, but establish this level of faith, primarily in yourself, and faith in the teacher, and faith in what the teacher says, and faith in the scripture, and faith in God. All of those things are there. The Kathopanishad that Nachiketa discusses these things with Nachiketa, finds Nachiketa armed with this supreme faith. It is that opens the way for the flow of teaching and the acceptance of it. Then, these are the treasures. Eventually, the most important, I would say, mumukshuktvam, or longing for moksha, liberation, freedom. Intense longing. You can have a longing which is a desire, but spiritual life is intensifying that longing. A longing of the student to free themselves through the knowledge of the true self, from all bondages pertaining to the body, the mind, and the ego. Bondages are created by ignorance. It must be understood that longing is totally different from mere restlessness. It's an urge, an urge inside. The great Shankaracharya lays emphasis on the cultivation of bhakti or devotion. But there's not necessarily devotion to God. It's supremely necessary to attain liberation, but bhakti is single-minded zeal and unswerving passion for the realization of truth. Even love of God is really to do with this. Without this emotional urge, the aspirant often becomes lost in the wilderness of dry intellectualism. All right. So I've told you some qualifications of the student as a movement toward accessing a competent teacher. I've told you about the competent teacher, but it has to be an alignment. Ramakrishna describes the teacher or the guru as being something like a matchmaker. You want to have a liaison with God. All right. And then the competent teacher, generally speaking, because most people are devotees, will say, dear devotee, this is your chosen ideal. Chosen ideal, this is your devotee. And then encourage it from there. The embodiment of a guru will be Hanuman, of course, if you read and study the story of the Ramayana. Now there's some question in here, which I have to read. Could you please tell us how do we maintain positivity if we are suffering financially or family members and thus are suffering from diseases like COVID? Also, our mind gets paranoid just thinking about the future and the past continuously. Could you please tell us how to overcome it practically in today's time? But you see, listen to how your question is phrased. Also, our mind gets paranoid just thinking about the future and the past. How do you avoid that? Don't think of the future and the past. Nobody asked you to. Nobody told you. Nobody commanded you to do this. But you're right, that's where all our paranoia comes from. What if? Several words we should avoid. But I would be fine, but I have the COVID. I would be fine if only I was financially better off. You see, all our conditions that we are experiencing now are fruits coming from the past. That's our system of karma. We won't dismiss it, but we have to accept what we have right now and deal with it. But how to change the mind into a positive condition? Of course, I could give a simple answer, just do it. But why would I even say that? It's because we're working within a time framework. And that comes as units. And units are blank before they're used. The second comes. It's gone. Where did it go? I don't know. It's gone forever. What did I put into it? Can I assert in every, as a preempting kind of preconditioning system, can I repeat higher values, nobler values, saturate the mind with strength and truth and beauty, goodness, love, and harmony? Can I not constantly tune the mind in? So tuning your mind in constantly to the glory of the self or God is spiritual practice. When we talk about practice, that's what we mean. Constantly tuning your mind in, like tuning in to a radio station. Whenever it goes off, you register, oh, I see. It now becomes a little more blurred. Some background noise is there. It's no longer as sharp and distinct as it previously was. Bring it back. We do it when we drive a car, isn't it? We do it in such a way that it becomes habitual. To practice means to cultivate a habit. So that when the car goes off to the left, without thinking, we immediately adjusted to the right. There's no holiday for it. As soon as the mind has nothing to occupy it in a positive way, negative things will occupy it. And that will drag us down. We have the capacity to do it because I'm not the mind. No more than I am not the horses that drive a chariot. I'm not the chariot itself. I'm not the reins that hold it. I'm not the charioteer. I'm the entity that sits in the chariot, directing it. Due to my presence, all these things move. That conviction has to be there. If it is not there, it requires more effort. And more effort means more enthusiasm. People say, yes, I'm enthusiastic about spiritual life. All right. Then will you come to the puja on Sunday? Yes, I would, but I have football practice. See? Which is more important? Do you have a thirst for it? The greatest example of this in a relatively contemporary framework would be Sri Ramakrishna. Wanting to know, is the basalt image in front of me real and true or not? The desire for this vision and this revelation was so much that tears flowed. Sri Ramakrishna later said, if you want a vision of God, weep for him. Weep for him 3 days, 3 nights, 4 days even. A few days, weep. Weep in desperation. And Sri Ramakrishna used to rub his face on the floor. Another day has passed, I still haven't seen you. And even after the revelation, he wanted a continuation of it. That desperation and longing took place. So this longing is the most important ingredient to it. And that has a capacity to transform things. If things are not good financially, don't sit there and commiserate, because it will emphasize it and it will increase your problem. Why? Because thought is a movement that is infallible. Because there's only one original thinker, the Lord of the universe sitting behind, every thought will carry through to its destination, its material destination. You have to understand the science of it, that all of these conditions are material conditions that are manifestations or condensations of what we thought. Don't complain when it's delivered to your doorstep. It's what you ordered. But what you ordered was bought with doubt, with fear, with desire, temptations, etc. That's what's delivered at your door. So how to change that? You can't deliver a change by endorsing it and underlining it. I want means I don't have. I want to be financially better off means I'm not financially where I want to be. +1, -1, you're not going anywhere. So with a thankful attitude, you put it into past tense, already got. Isn't the Lord of the universe the same as the energy of abundance which you call Lakshmi? Isn't it this Lakshmi? Why should we worry about our financial statements when we have Lakshmi on our side, when we have direct access to Mother Lakshmi, to full abundance? But do you have faith in that? Can you put a thought through saying thanks for the abundance already delivered to me at some point? Put your order in abundance. Don't cancel it. Don't cancel it by putting your order in and changing your mind. I want, I don't have. I would like, I don't have. It's the don't have aspect that cancels it out. And this is generally called positive thinking. You put the thought in. And this is supported by affirmations. What affirmations should we make? With all due faith, we should make the affirmation. The fundamental affirmation is, Lord, you are here. You are now. And you are ever providing. And your grace is flowing all the time and everywhere. What we call abundance and financial wealth is divine grace manifested. What we call cleverness and wisdom is divine grace manifested. What we call health is divine grace manifested. There's an advantage to having COVID because I am told that it takes the place of vaccination because you're now built up an immune system somewhere. And in this immune system, what we call COVID and the symptoms of it is the body building immunity to it. I've had it. I'm just getting over it. Body is recovering from it. A little hoarseness of the voice is there, a little chestiness is there, and so on and so forth. But I have every faith that my divine lover who sits within is doing all the repair work, doing the necessary adjustments, strengthening the immune system. If you take a drug, in my personal opinion, it's so much lack of faith in your body and the divine workings of it. You have faith that God is doing what it should be doing, coping the best, despite me, despite my behavior. What behavior is that? On a hot day, I decide to douse all my digestive juices and fire, the digestive fire, God sitting within me, digesting my food. I decide to make it difficult by putting ice cream there and dousing all the digestive fire out. In a state of depression and unease, then I eat more, and the poor Lord of the universe has to digest all this nonsense, all this rubbish, fast foods, for example, and so on. Fast food has become a compensation because when you mix fat and when you mix carbohydrates, this combination is lethal. There was a study that came from Edinburgh University, maybe last year, a few years ago, that made an obvious statement. I could have told them. It said, if you eat fat, you'll get fat. Okay, I could have told you this. So what shall I do? I'm so fat. Don't eat fat. Oh, it's my metabolism. No, the Lord of the universe can take care of all of that. Why don't you have faith in this structure that is a divine structure for your freedom, designed to discover everything you want to discover about the world and also about the entity that sits inside it as a ruler of an 11-gated city. Why don't you steer your mind and your thinking toward that? Nobody asks you to think in negative ways. So negative ways amount to two ways of thinking, all egocentric ways. That is the mind in a restless, future-orientated mode to get some reward for you. This is called rajas. The other one is a complete lack of interest, complete laziness, complete lethargy, leaving you in the darkness of depression. And this is called tamas. But what happened to the friend that you have called sattva? Why don't you use that? Why don't you make something which is more useful? Why don't you take away all this misunderstanding about your identity? And why don't you put generosity instead? Why don't you put goodness instead? Charity, purity, love. Why don't you put all these values there? Why don't you build up a useful bank balance for yourself of all these qualities, making habitual? Then what will be the effect on the physical body? Every cell will vibrate with it. And in the general environment, all these qualities will come out and crystallize and manifest and condense as all the people around you, all the new adventures, all the places, all the scenes, all the situations, domestic, financial, and health. So that's what I would say in answer to your question.
So may I have a question?
Yes.
It's a very encompassing question there. I have read here under my eyes that all people have inside of them like you said, like an enthusiasm or like a force to do things, and and the greater responsibility the greater the force they can apply. And at this time, there are some people suffering around the world, and and some that are very, actually suffering because of the oppression of the dictators. And my question is like how long it will take to some dictators to fall, because they have to fall. And they will. The thing is, people want them to fall, and very, very, very swiftly. So there's two things in my own perspective, whether it's happening very fast or like it takes years. People don't have years at this time. It needs to be fast, like it needs to be very, very fast.
It is fast and will be fast because history shows us that out of some 4.5 billion years of the Earth's existence, a dictator's life on this planet is a flash. Man's history on this planet is a flash. Man's oppression over man happens. It will be over in a flash. World War I happened in a flash. It didn't feel like that at the time. It was 4 years in the making. From 1914 to 1918. And during that period of time, in Belgium, in Flanders, you'll see so much tragic evidence of it. We can learn a lesson, not to repeat it, of course, but egocentricity will be there. And as long as man is around, this lack of self-control will be there. This urge for exerting power will be there. But I can assure you, it won't last long. Supposing it lasts 4 years, then 4 years compared to 4.5 billion years, and even cosmologists will talk about this whole universe being existent for 13.8 billion years, supposing they're correct. What is 4 years? So we have to understand that every event in the universe is a fleeting, passing event. And some of it will be good, and some of it will not be good. And as a result, I don't get a headache over it. Because all I can do is think positively. And what is the most positive thing we can think of? That is the divine, the supreme, the infinite invisible, the Brahman, that which is full and free and perfect, that which sits here with you in this present moment and disappears in my awareness once I start entertaining what will happen in the future and what has happened in the past. Past we can't change. The future we can change by our positivity. Some people call this positivity prayer. I have a funny example that I have told you probably many times before. In Zimbabwe, there was a course spanning over 2 weekends, and there's a gap in between. And so, in the second weekend, I asked somebody, what did you do? How was it? And it was in period of drought. And the person said, I went to Johannesburg. We entered at a big stadium, something like 70,000 people there. And we were praying for rain. I was disgusted. Disgusted? I was appalled. Appalled? Do you know, Swami, not one person brought an umbrella. So this lack of faith is there. And it is all entertained by things are wrong. I hope things are better. But that very process mitigates against any improvement. Because you're saying, I hope. That's a phraseology not useful in terms of faith. Anyway, we are now on lunch, so I'll bid you farewell. And so thank you for your questions. If you have any questions, either from this or further, then be free to ask them actually on Wednesday evening, where we have a similar question-answer session. And we also have, of course, next Sunday as well. And don't forget, we also have Kathopanishad on the Saturday morning. And of course, we have the various talks throughout the week. So we have a Tuesday evening. I haven't selected the topic yet, We can maybe select a similar topic to what we had today. I don't know. And then we have the Tattva Bhuta, or we have question and answer on Wednesday. We have Tattva Bhuta by Swami Shantivratananda on Thursday afternoon. And then, of course, Saturday, Sunday. And of course, this evening is a talk by Swami Shantivratananda as well as tomorrow evening, followed by the RT online. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Thank you.